Many thanks for joining us on another edition of the program National Talk on Equa Television International. My name is Joyce Jakada. We're live on Facebook and YouTube at Equa Television International. You can do well to join the conversation. Tonight on National Talk, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has raised the interest rate by 150 basis points from 24.75% to 26.25%. Following a two-day meeting, the bank's Monetary Policy Committee agreed to increase the monetary policy rate for the third straight time to rein in the country's soaring inflation levels, pegged at 33.69% in April 2024. The CBN Governor Yemi Cardoso, who admitted the rising inflation levels in the country, said the key focus of the MPC meeting was to achieve price stability by using tools available to rein in inflation. He said the inflation pressure is being driven largely by food inflation, citing rising costs of transportation, infrastructure challenges, insecurity, and exchange rate issues as some of the factors affecting it. In the meantime, the organized labor rejected the government's fresh offer, the third proposal in about a week, when negotiation talks resume on Wednesday. The NLC and the TUC, however, shifted grounds from their initial 615,000 to 495,000 naira. Tonight on National Talk, I'm being joined by Associate Professor Panshak Yohana, who is the head of Department of Economics, Plateau State University, Bokos. Good evening and welcome to National Talk.
Good evening, Joyce.
Welcome. It feels good to have you despite your busy schedule. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's go straight into the conversation. Like I said before the show, you are the expert here. We're talking about economics. We're talking about the country's current reality. And the Monday's announcement on the increase in interest rate generated a lot of reaction across the country. People are saying, oh, you want to squeeze out on industries, on businesses, and even people that have intention of borrowing. But let's make sense of this announcement. It came amid soaring prices of commodities and even rising cost of living, and pushed majorly by people have said is because of the removal of fuel subsidy, and that came up last year during the inauguration of President Bola Tinubu, and some people talked about the floating of the naira. Nigerians are at this moment, I think, are battling one of the historic inflation that is pegged at 3.69%. But despite protests, despite the pressure by even organized labor, we still saw the president saying, please exercise more patience. Like at the end of the day, this is going to yield fruit. But Nigerians have been wondering how long with all of this. So, but amidst all the pressure, amidst this high cost of living, the current reality, we still keep seeing policies coming up. For the Central Bank of Nigeria now, we know in recent time they targeted cryptocurrency exchange, Binance, among others, so that at least the naira can actually gain. But it looks like at this point it's been stalled and all of that. And that is why we're also hearing about the increase in interest rates. But you see, when you look at the MPR, it was increased by 400 basis points. That's to 22.75%, from the 18.75%. That was in February. It was increased by 200 basis points to 24.75% in March. And currently, we're talking about 150 basis points that led to the 26.75% in May. So help us make sense of this current interest rate that is pegged at 26.25%.
Thank you so much, Joyce. And thank you, viewers, for this chance. Indeed, Nigeria has been consistently on the path of restraining and controlling inflation. Inflation is a global problem, we know. According to the perception of Global Index on the most dangerous variables and things that people are worried about across the globe, inflationary pressures was ranked the highest, if not the most worrying variable across board. It was even ranked higher than issues of poverty, crime, and inequality. It was ranked higher more than the war in Gaza, conflicts in Ukraine, it was also ranked higher than the effects of pandemic around March this year. This is to tell you that inflation is a key problem at the global level. And coming to the Nigerian context, the central bank has seen this as a problem, and it has been pursuing this as a part to seeing that the economy of Nigeria remains stable or regains its stability that we have lost over time. So in its effort, in line with its objective, which one of them is to maintain price stability, maintain exchange rate stability, to promote growth, to reduce unemployment in the economy. That's the objective of the federal bank, as many more, right? But if you look at it critically, you made mention of how it has been raised from January to date, from the 22.2% or thereabout,
It was
18 to 22.
Yes.
Then at this moment we
24,
have 26.65%. You know, ordinarily, you think as if much will be gained with that. But going history length, the efficacy of this policy needs to be within some certain, conditions. Perhaps before we go on, let's understand what is this interest rate. In a simple terms, we want to say cost of borrowing. The amount, the rate at which central bank, lends to the banks affects their own, rates in setting commercial prices, rates for people to borrow, right? So if it increased the interest rate, that's monetary policy rate as the way it is reducing the supply of money in supply. It is reducing the chances that you and I can have money from the commercial banks.
Earlier on we were talking about how that it's important, like it's a universal standard.
Yeah.
When there's inflation, you see, countries looking out for measures to actually curtail that. But the central bank is also saying that we're looking into this increased interest rate to fight the current inflation and stabilize the prices of commodities. But what significance does, you're just trying to spell out what the interest rate is all about, but of what significance is this increase?
Yeah, the thing is, the way Nigeria is at the moment, increasing interest rates at this current situation may not yield the results. When you increase interest rates, as I earlier said, you are trying to reduce the supply of money in the society, in the economy. But we have a problem in Nigeria about the unbanked public, the people that are not captured in the financial sector. Even though I just read about the performance, the gains that we have obtained in terms of financial inclusion, around 2010 or thereabout, we are like about 60 or thereabout that people have not entered the banking sector. But now at the moment, it's like we have about 36% that is still outside of the banking sector, right? But that is not my focus. My own problem is that even though you are inside, you are captured within the financial sector, you are included, right? But how many people have access to credit that when you increase the interest rate, it affects people? You and I have, banks, deposits in the banks, but for you to access all those loans that the interest rate will be effective on, we are limited because of issues of, collaterals, some stringent, requirements may not allow you to access such funds. It's only these big conglomerates of people that have, maybe I wouldn't want to say connections as the case may be, but people who have been proven that they are credit worthy. For new entrants, willing to get loans at times they find it difficult, even though you are in the system.
So this is likely to deny some people opportunity of even borrowing,
Of
having
course.
access to,
Of course.
to credit.
Of course.
But you see, when we talk about business, I think credit is really important.
It is.
Nobody can talk about the success of any business without credit.
It is.
So let's speak to us on the impact of this increase in interest rates on businesses, not just businesses. I think even there are states, there are governments that also borrow.
Yes.
And for those that have already borrowed, will this increase in rate affect their financial health?
One, before I come to that financial health, the increase in this interest rate may not, first, it will not even achieve the objective of reducing inflation significantly in the Nigerian sector.
Why?
Yeah, you see, the thing is, I've made mention of something earlier. You want to reduce money supply just by, increasing one variable, one component of it. Nigeria has so many, problems affecting it. So by raising interest rate alone, you may not achieve the desired result. Government can achieve its targets, not necessarily using the monetary variables alone. We have fiscal policies that is in play. We have income and wages policies that if it wants to achieve a particular target, it can use those policies. But by just using one component, it will only result to many business collapsing. Because if businesses cannot access funds at a rate that it will permit their domestic production, you have problem, right? So if businesses are unable to get loans, to get credit at an efficient rate, at a reduced rate, that it can carry out its businesses, certainly businesses may not expand, some may not establish new businesses, and in that case, productivity will fall. And when productivity falls, that means output generally is reducing. And if companies cannot maintain workers, the wages of workers in the system, certainly there would be layoffs in the system. Right? And if people are laid off in the system, unemployment certainly increases. And when that cycle continues, the overall growth of the economy, the GDP of the economy, certainly will be dampened, will be reduced by this singular, effort in trying to tame one variable, that is inflation. Right? So what we are saying here is that this increase in, interest rate, even if it will have any impact, right, on inflation, it will be very, very marginal. It will be insignificant based on the quantum of the problems that Nigeria have.
A lot of people have alleged that on this part of the world, Nigerians just spend by, you just feel you feel like spending, and then people just go borrow and then just to spend on not business but just lavish lifestyle to sponsor their kind of lifestyle and all of that. But talking about the significance of this increase in interest rates, I know that when the central bank increase interest rate, it also has a way of reducing people that have access to loans and all, especially now I'm making a focus to those people that borrow not for business purposes, but just to spend because it's just low interest rates, so I can just go out, I can pay effortlessly. The story was told of a lady that borrowed about 500,000 from bank, and she just collected the money, went home, she was sleeping, bought all the hair, the bags that she wanted. And so you also know, we are aware that when we have a lot of money in circulation, it also causes inflation. So, but do you not see this as helping to reduce, especially in the number of people that just borrow, not for business purposes, but just to spend?
Yeah, the thing is, what you said is, I wouldn't want to say it is completely right or wrong, because Nigeria is a complex system with so many people with different behaviors, with different attitudes to things. But we want to look at the percentage of people that will always embark on such activities,
for business
and
purposes.
and the larger people that seek loan for meaningful businesses, right? The banks, I know they have rules. Before you access loans, they have way of assessing you whether you are credit worthy or not. So in that regard, I believe that we can increase and intensify on our efforts and requirements on how one would be assessed before giving a particular loan. I know there are asymmetries. You know, asymmetry, we call it asymmetry of information. A person can come to you that I am so, I have this, I have that. If you give me this, I can be able to do all beautiful arguments, beautiful proposals that these proposals are not even written by them. We have them. But a conscious bank that wants to really, loan out its money, it can always go out of its ways to ascertain the credibility, the worthiness of that particular candidate, so that we will not, lock many people out of the system because of some group of persons that will always go the abnormal way to access funds for for their personal use and other things. You know, in theory, we used to see, we hear, we read that you go to bank, you access loan, and you go and marry. You give birth to so many wives, you give birth to many children.
People borrow to buy funds.
Exactly. So you see, all those things are there. But at the moment, I know that many people are conscious. Like this content that you see people creating these days, which I know is one of our, they say it is the new oil now in the system right now. These young people from the universities, graduates, they are looking at new opportunities for them to venture, right? Perhaps if they come to the bank, maybe to access, and when they access you, they may think as if you are one of those, right? But these are people that can just venture into content creation and earn living, and you always see them with their phones, doing some small things, and they gain returns on it. But if this thing is completely shut out from them, if they are closed because of high interest rate, perhaps maybe the argument of people that are saying that people borrow to go and marry, we may lock some people out, because in economics there's what we call trade-off. In trying to achieve an objective, before you know it, you are triggering, right? One thing. So it is in us trying to get a balance. That yes, if we put interest rate, if we pay interest at this rate, what would be the implication of this? If you reduce this for us to get this, maintaining balance is key to the success of any policy.
All right. I would still like to draw your attention back to states or governments that borrow too, to do one or two things in their states. But what is the implication of these now on their financial health for those especially that have borrowed already? Does this have effect on them? They have borrowed, they are yet to pay. And for those that are probably intending to?
Generally, theoretically, I want to talk on the aggregate first. There is always a burden on borrowing. If the government continue to borrow, it has a way of raising the interest rate. It has a way of, it has a way of pushing it up beyond the reach of normal, borrowers, customers who are willing to get. And if you look at the last policy direction of the federal government, it is trying to concentrate within the system, to borrow more within the Nigerian system, right? If those systems, governments continue to borrow within, there's what we call crowding out of investors, because they have the wherewithal. Their borrowings have some security attached to. So if they borrow from the banking sector, they drain out resources out of the system and leaving, a smaller percentage to the customers, other people that wants to get a little amount for them to have access to. So if government continues to borrow, and particularly when these borrowing are not tied to productive ventures, maybe we borrow, for festivals, we borrow for, for pilgrimage, you borrow, to advance, that will certainly increase, the inflationary pressure that we are experiencing. That is why some pundits, some people are saying that for us to be borrowing, for us to be financing such kind of projects that are not tied to production, why can't the government consider cutting off those kind of projects from them? But however, if a government Borrowing is not necessarily bad. If government can borrow and tie it to production, because we have enormous opportunities that we can we can push our resources into and yield more fruits that people that are unemployed can be able to be gainfully employed. When that thing happens, that will not reflect in inflation in a country. You borrow, you invest in a productive venture that people can be employed, right? If people are employed, the system will certainly, I wouldn't say inflated, but it will improve, right? As people are spending, my own income, my own spending becomes your own income, and the next person, that cycle continues, and the system is better off.
Okay, talking about the system becoming better off and even improving, do you see this as an opportunity to attract more investors? Because we've seen in time past how that our president has been moving from one country to the other, trying to lure investors to come and invest in Nigeria. We know in time past we had a lot of people that invested here, but due to insecurity and other factors, some had to move out of the country. In fact, within the last 1 year, we saw a lot of international organizations moving out. But with this increased rate, do you see it as an opportunity to lure in investors to our country?
Yes, theoretically, you see, interest rate is a signal to investors. They always try to push their resources and move to where interest rate is high, where they can get returns on their investment. So when we deal with interest rate, we look at domestic issues and how the international community will respond to it. So in this case, we have raised interest rate, and one of the key things that is behind this system's, this government's, agenda is to attract enormous inflow of resources, right? Investors should come to invest in Nigeria. That is the theory. We tried this thing before. Theoretical, we said that is the book. That is what is obtainable in the textbooks. But if you look at the context that Nigeria has found itself, raising interest rate, even though some will come, but how significant are these investments compared to the damage that we will do to the domestic economy, right? It may not necessarily yield to positive results. Why? Because the macroeconomic environment is not stable. Issues of, this banditry, kidnapping. Last time we had issues of the petroleum sector is trying to divest or to de-invest. They want to bring one term to cover firms leaving the country. But the thing is, they are living, right? They are living. The militancy in the south is not permitting these oil companies to survive, even though interest rate is high. But who wants to invest in a place that tomorrow you will come back and your investments are no more? It is a key problem. So even though we have taken a step, yes, the people that have the mind to come, they may come. But because the environment is too toxic and volatile, they may not be able to come. And perhaps, these issues of these are bureaucracies at times. Nigerian system, if businesses come in, you've attracted them to come, right? Before you know it, this one is asking that what will be my return on this investment? You are coming to my country. What will I gain in return, right? So it is a problem as well, because we have issues with our institutions, right? The problems of rules and regulations not being observed. It is a problem. And again, I want to tell you that if this interest rate is still being raised to lure these investors to come, we may miss it. You will miss it when we look at the domestic content, the damage that we just want to control inflation, which we have opportunities to reduce inflation, not necessarily targeting inflation, right? So I believe that if we want to do it, look at other things. Will the people come to invest in Nigeria when cost of doing business is very high?
It looks like most times when we come up with policies or acts, it's like we neglect the, like doing a review about the current situation. We're looking at what work in other countries, what is working, and then not looking at the reality on ground. Like we always say, oh, it's normal for countries to borrow.
Exactly.
People borrow, but we forget, what do they borrow for? Is it for production or just for consumption? So most times we find out that when people are even complaining about issues of borrowing, people say, no, there's no country that exists. Even developed nations actually borrow. But we neglect the fact that they look within.
Yes.
Why they have, like, I mean, reasons why they borrow. Even though in Nigeria, on papers, we have beautiful policies, but implementation is always the problem. We're talking about this increase, interest rates, the rise in interest rate. Like I said earlier, we've seen that since February and up until May. It looks like there's some missing links. The CBN, through the monetary policy committee, are saying that it was actually necessary because of the inflation that was majorly food inflation that also impacted other sectors. And like I said earlier on, they actually looked at some cryptocurrency that looked like it was going to stabilize the naira, but few weeks after, we're seeing like it was like the option they had was not really working, meaning something is actually wrong. But beyond these policies, are there other areas that government or the CBN can actually look into in terms of fighting inflation? Because the whole talk is about inflation,
yes.
fighting inflation, and this is one of the way they do that as far as the CBN is concerned. If we want to fight, one of the options is increase in interest rates. But do you think there are other options that could be explored beyond the increase?
Exactly. There are several of those. You see this policy, that's my opinion, is just like a dog chasing its tail. You understand? You are trying to achieve something, but that thing is not, you are not seeing the end of that. You continue to roll, and you will not see what you have done. Right? To me, the basics ought to be addressed. The basic problems of the Nigerian system needs to be addressed. You know, when I was, carrying out my research, my friend, when I discussed my topic with him, I said that, see, these issues that when we were in the universities, we kept on saying that Nigeria's economy ought to be diversified, to have more, opportunities that will earn dollars, so let's earn money. The problem is about Nigeria not making enough money to be independent on our own. So when I made mention of issues of diversification, that word seems to be overflowed. That even if you are discussing it, people don't even see the relevance and weight of that. But you cannot go on building when the foundation is faulty.
That's true.
That is the truth. We rely on one product or some few and think that we will be okay, and we're exposed to international volatility. Inflation can never be solved when we refuse to do the basics at home, right? You ask of solution to this. Why is that we are not producing and producing well? That these issues of food prices may not rise. Issues of macroeconomic environment. Why can't we have genuine credit system that will be targeted at people that produce? The farmers. Last time we have issues of anchors, borrowers, by central bank. But at the beginning of this year, we had that so much, irregularities, corruption, and whatever was found in the system. We are just too fine. We are just too good in finding how monies were misappropriated. Until a policy is implemented, at the end of it, you discover that many bad things has happened. Right? I am of the opinion that if things must be done right, let's go back to the basics. What of the agricultural sector that supports the system in the past? Are we saying that our forefathers in the past that existed and survived on agriculture at their own crude level, that we have the brains right now to take agriculture to the next level of production, not at the primary level, but we can go on the secondary, at least by intensifying this processing of of agricultural products, make them, add some value onto them that we can even export at that level, as a process level. Like this maize that we produce much on the plateau, why should we send it down to the south in form of a raw form? Why can't we, transform it to like a secondary stage before final and export it so that we get more money? We're not thinking of those opportunities. And look at this, the oil economy that they left for us. These people in the past built 3 or 4 refineries to this generation. And look at generation from 1990 to date that we cannot even maintain those refineries. Talk more of adding 1 or 2 to the system. These are basics. So these are basics that whether we like it or not, these are the basics. It has been overflowed, but we continue to say it. That one person alone, Dangote, can build a refinery within the shortest period of time. Do you think one person is more than 200 million or over 200 million Nigerians? Absolutely. Something's wrong with our foundation.
True. I like the fact that you brought about the issue of foundation and going back to the basics. Because when there is fault, when the foundation is faulty, if it is not addressed, the issue is not addressed, we will keep rigmaroling.
That is the truth.
We keep coming up with policies. We keep traveling outside this country, having meetings, going for consultation. But at the end of the day, though beautifully articulated, the issue will still not be addressed. But do you see corruption as being one of the bane to all of this? Because sometimes, even with the policies, with the increase in currently, we are having the former CBN governor going back and forth with court cases. So even the issue of the Naira redesign, he was accused of a lot of things. So it was a policy that was meant to address some of the economic challenges that we're faced with. So do you see corruption being a bane in all of this?
You see, initially I made mention of one thing. I said that they are thinking as if inflation is the main problem. Thank God, we've discussed issues of foundation. Corruption has become so endemic. So when you made mention of corruption again, people begin to see it as a normal thing. In fact, the current generation, you think as if you know your ways, if you can maneuver. They have changed corruption into.
It's already a cliche.
Yes. So if you have your ways, it's no longer corruption to just make it somehow, palatable for you and I, to indulge in such kind of things. The thing is a key problem. It is a key problem. We have articulated all these policies. Naira design, the cost of producing those Naira were more than the value.
True.
So what have we done? So the thing is, Nigeria's problem, they say it's hydra-headed, but is multifaceted. It's multidimensional. It has so many, I wouldn't want to say branches, but it has so many wings. Right? Nigeria must go back to the basics, start with the basics, improve on the basics, add value to whatever we have. I'm just thinking aloud. If Libya, that only has oil and supports its economy, that its minimum wage is about $342. Nigeria, that will have the same thing, even more than their own. Our own minimum wage is just $20. That's 30 Naira. And it's one product that is supporting that. Go to areas like Saudi Arabia. These are people that ordinarily were supposed to be moving at par with them. Yes, they have these basic resources that God has blessed them with. What have they done with their own? I believe that even if we are to maintain, even if we are not to diversify, if we can improve on the value of what we have as oil alone, that's alone, one company alone, we wouldn't have been having these issues, because most of the problems Nigeria have about inflation is issues that are connected to energy sector. The first statement that the president made, the removal of that subsidy is gone. If you go and check the statistics that day alone, if you move on your own, don't base your analysis on the books. Go, maybe assuming that you have watched, because that day I was driving and I saw people queuing.
I just said,
I was like, what is happening? They say that tomorrow, there's nothing like such, and fuel will be sold as so. We were thinking that it was a play. So I even downplayed it. And the next day, I couldn't even find line to queue up.
In fact, prices just went high, transportation and all of that.
And you know that every production in Nigeria is connected to the energy.
Very true.
Transportation is key. You know, powering of firms, industry, we power them with all those. So the thing is, the foundation must be corrected. Why should we produce at primary level and refuse to refine it because some people are benefiting from exporting and re-importing? And we think that that will be okay with Nigeria.
And no wonder someone said Nigeria as a country is actually blessed both with natural resources and even human resources.
Yes.
Put together, if these two are being utilized, or
Exactly.
if we are going to be truthful about everything, then there will definitely be enough for everybody's needs. But it's just the greed of few individuals. When people make policies, when leaders make decisions, people are looking at what they will gain instead of easing pain on the side of the masses. And that is why currently, as we speak, Nigerians are actually battling like one of the historic high inflation level. And amidst all of this inflation level, we've seen a lot of pressure from the organized labor asking the government to actually review the minimum wage, which is actually constitutional. There's already an act as far as that is concerned. After 5 years, there should be review of that to actually look at the current reality that the country is actually faced with. Last week, we had a conversation here about the minimum wage, how that the NLC and the TUC, they had to walk out of the federal government because of the proposed 48,000 naira minimum wage as against the 615,000 minimum wage that the organized labor is actually proposing. But we saw how that when the meeting resumed, the federal government, there was also another suggestion of 54,000 that was rejected, and then now 57,000. Now both the federal government and also the organized private sector came up with this minimum wage, but NLC is still rejecting, though it came down with its own request from 615,000 to 497,000. But the federal government are pegging theirs at the moment at 57,000. But I would like you to speak on this proposal from both parties. Now, some people are saying the organized labor are not being sincere in suggesting 615,000, though they have come down to 497,000. But looking at the reality on ground and looking at what the government is actually suggesting, we know that when you talk about the minimum wage, you're talking about like the minimum remuneration that is being given to a worker. Now, this administration has been hammering on living wage. The president, talking about Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has been talking about living wage, which is intended to provide workers with enough income to afford a basic but decent standard of living. And the NLC and TUC are saying at this moment we're rejecting 57,000. We're dropping down to 470,000. 497,000 naira. What do you make from the suggestion from both sides? I mean, these people are speaking on behalf of workers. And so looking at the current economic reality and what the federal government and organized private sector are saying and what the NLC are talking about, like, what do you make of all of this?
You see, in your definition of these issues of minimum wage, it is a legally permitted, sealed rate that no labor, no person that is legally employed should earn beneath that rate. That's the minimum. And it is legal. Nigeria has that system, right? That a worker ought to work for like 5 days, right? From Mondays to Fridays, like 8 hours per day. That at the end of it, you are supposed to earn not less than a particular minimum. In our own is 30,000.
Of which some states are yet to implement.
I just learned that the governor of Zamfara will be implementing his own in June.
30,000 naira.
30,000 naira. And when you convert this to dollar equivalent, mentioned it before, is just $20 or thereabout, depending on the current rate, because this our naira has been so volatile. You know the rate today, tomorrow you don't know. But on the average, that $30,000 is equivalent to like 20. When you compare to countries that Nigeria ought to have outperformed them, we realize that we are not being given anything. We don't even earn at all. South Africa earns like 240 something per month. Libya, I made mention, it is 320 something per month. Morocco is $315, and Nigeria is earning what? Is earning $20. And in the initial proposal, that he requested that let it move from that $20 to like $400 per month, and it has been greeted with so many, disapprovals from the part of the government. The thing is, what is the role of the government? The government, the major objective of the government is to secure the welfare of its citizens, to protect it from external aggression, right? Any territorial or whatever is to protect its government. If the people are not being satisfied, government is not achieving anything. And if the government feels that they said 57,000 at the moment, and they are still thinking that they have done much, then Nigerian government is not sincere to itself, because none of them there. Those policymakers can never, stay on 57,000 in a day.
I mean, as we speak right now, these 57,000 cannot even buy a bag of rice. And they're actually indices. For, the organized labor actually justified from the 615,000 that they earlier initiated to the 497 that they have reduced to. They have actually justified by giving data.
Statistics.
Yes. But you see, on the part of the federal government, there have not been any data to support it. Why? Because it cannot, as far as the current reality is actually concerned. But I said earlier on that this whole quagmire began last year, since the president announced the removal of first subsidy, where we saw a lot of hike in prices, food, commodities, transportation, energy. Recently, there was back and forth about electricity tariff, Ban A, and all of that. So, but there were a lot of protests. We had pressures from the organized labor on the federal government that, can you look at this, your policies, vis-a-vis what the workers are earning? But what we keep hearing is that it's going to yield fruit. Workers should be patient. When you keep seeing government, you see leaders, people in power, sharing humongous amount of money, buying luxury cars. Like, do you think this government is actually sensitive to the needs of the people?
Joyce, thank you for this elaborate explanation. This is to tell you that the Nigerian government does not have your interest at heart. It seems as if it does not care for you and I. It seems that it just wants to, continue to enlarge and increase the gap between the rich and the poor. Because all the policies that we've seen in the recent past, they are anti-people. None of their policies is aimed at improving the welfare of the people. Even though many people keep on telling us that these policies will soon yield fruits, that let us just be patient. But I am coming from an economic perspective, from the post-Keynesian perspective. We believe that in the long run, maybe we would have been dead. Right? We are not saying that, we will not exist tomorrow. But the thing is, you need to survive today and face tomorrow. Just imagine. We removed fuel subsidy, and there were so many promises attached to that fuel subsidy.
True.
They said in a month we can realize it's about 40 trillion or thereabout in a month, if I'm not mistaken. In a month, if we can have that money from that assertion that led to the removal of fuel subsidy, why haven't we plowed this thing back into the oil sector to revamp all those, ailing refineries, or to even create new ones? If we so much believe that the problem of the energy sector was the issues of corruption, people diverting all this to other places. If they are not following IMF and World Bank, conditions. Because for a free market to survive, they believe that government should take much of its hands in the management of the economy. So if they continue in that light, subsidies are the sole, effort of the government towards, reducing some things. Cost of living.
I like the fact that you mentioned IMF and World Bank, because there's actually a lot of conversation on their role in all of this.
Of course.
We've seen how the IMF, World Bank have talked about, Nigerians cannot continue to pay subsidies on electricity. There were a lot of talk about removals of subsidy. Now, what sense do you make of the role of this international body? Like, we see how that some international, like some countries, still subsidize, but Nigerians are always advised, like they are advising, this international organization are advising Nigerians to actually, the leadership, to remove subsidy on this, and even though there are also excuses on the part of government. Earlier on, we're talking about inflation. When there is a lot of money in circulation, it leads to inflation. Don't you think maybe it's in line with curtailing, according to them now, the inflation, why they are insisting on the minimum wage, like pegging it at 57, instead of maybe agreeing with NLC? But personally, I kept wondering, is the inflation, are you only concerned when it comes to workers or when it comes to other Nigerians? When you are sharing humongous amount of money, is it that our government are not sensitive to the issue of inflation?
You see, no one is downplaying or degrading the functions. Yes, the tax responsibility of IMF and all this World Bank. Yes, they've been advising. They have been, giving some policy recommendations to, various economies across the board.
True.
And mostly in the developing countries. We had our own first in 1986, the introduction of SAP. We are performing far, far better than when we accepted all these Bretton Woods, conditions to, to deregulate, to reduce government, presence much in government activities. But we've seen it. That Naira, which was higher in value than the dollar, the things was opposite. And at the moment, we have never seen this kind of problem before. That when government continue to go outside of the management of the economy, that leave all these variables to be controlled by the invisible hands of the market, that's the demand and supply, to control the market, that things will be okay. Really, this thing seems to be good in the books, but really, it works only in efficient markets, in markets that all things work correctly.
True.
But in the Nigerian system, you cannot continue to import policies and try to domesticate them verbatim without adjusting in line with what is prevailing in your own country.
That's true.
We have a problem. We have a problem of poverty. We have a problem of slow growth. We have a problem of inequality in the system. We have bad infrastructure. We have people that every day are being plunged into poverty daily.
Out of school children.
And you are telling us that those ones are not problem, that don't care about the people. Remove anything that Nigerians will adjust. That will adjust, and that is what people are suffering. People may not have data to support maybe the number of people that perhaps are dead, or because of one or two things they cannot afford, not to go to the markets, hospitals. I may not have data to support, but if you check around your neighborhood, you realize that the policies that we have implemented, the issues that government is leaving everything to the market forces to control, it's not working because we have issues of inefficiency.
I mean, a lot of people have been squeezed. A lot of businesses have packed out. We live in the society and we can relate to all of this. There are people that have closed down their shops, businesses, because they could not cope with some of these policies. I mean, there are a lot of people too that we've had, like people that died because they could not feed. Gone are the days where you have the lower, the middle class. Like now, it's either you are rich or you are poor. There's almost, you don't have the middle class. People feed morning, afternoon, and evening. Now it's either 0, 0, 1, or you are doing 1, 0, 1, or you are just doing like 1. Yeah. So there are a lot of things that we can actually easily relate to. But talking about the people and then not looking at them, sometimes personally I just ask myself, are we being led by pedestrian or intellectuals? Like, Do these people feel what the people are actually going through? Because you keep seeing policies upon policies that are just meant to drain and squeeze the people. Now, the interest rate, like you really explained earlier on. What about people that are into businesses? We know that there's no business that will try without capital. Well, when these interest rates are on the high side, like, I mean, it will be like people are doing business to pay like interest or to just for the sake of the government and all of that. But let's talk about this current reality, the living wage. There has been a lot of rigmaroles. This thing is supposed to have been implemented, like, but you hear of meeting, you hear of organized labor working out, you hear government being adamant, like they are being careful. I mean, from 48,000, you are saying 57. Even when a state like Edo is proposing 70,000. I'm not unaware that some people are alleging, oh, it's because of election that is fast approaching or all of that. But how can, like, what do you think now is the way out so that we don't keep rolling? The NLC have given to 31st of May, and this is just by the corner.
Yeah.
But what we are still seeing is not even looking like there is a headway. Do you think the NLC are really speaking the minds of the workers? And if they are doing, then what's the way out right now? Beyond we hearing, okay, we are hopeful that they're still going to be meeting, but Nigerians don't want to be seeing this working out. Like, what will be the solution to all of this?
I'm talking from experience. See, there is no way out for this.
So we should expect working
Wait.
out.
I'm coming. You see, there are many things that inform labor to request and demand for wage increases. And one of the key things is that when they feel that their productivity is more than what they are getting. And that's what we are seeing in Nigeria. When the cost of living is becoming more unbearable, right? Certainly, based on the terms that maybe you enter contract with the government, those things are part of the labor law. So, and it's expected that every 5 years, things like that ought to be reviewed. But let me tell you that this 57,000 that the government is even giving, I want to relate it to one data that Center for Global Development, it is in Scotland, I think, and one of our sons there is really doing a good job. So when he analyzed the real wage, not nominal wage in these terms, real wage in the sense that you factor in issues of inflation into it. So before the pay rise in 2009, an average professor at Bar was earning like $2,300, dollars per month, which is equivalent to like 400 or something, as at that time. But at the moment, in 2023, when he factored into these issues of price increases, how inflation has eroded the value of the nominal wage of an average professor in the Nigerian university. He can be thinking of getting home with only 73,000 because inflation has eroded, and there hadn't been any effort to maintain the real wage of the professor. And this is not only in the education system; it covers all through. I say this one because I have statistics regarding that. So if you look at increase in this nominal wage as something, it is not, because taking the wage to like 57 based on that statistics is like we will be earning that that amount of wage that's equivalent to 1981. In 1981 is like what, 54 naira per 54,000 naira per month. So the government is taking us back to 1981 when inflations are being factored into the nominal wage that we have. So are we going forward or we are going backward?
That's a critical question.
At the moment, if we use that analysis from economic perspective, then an average professor is earning only 73,000 naira.
Pathetic.
That one is pathetic. And
with the amount of work.
Exactly, and they are justifying that. And you think that they have our interest at heart? The thing is, if we'll be discussing issues of inflation, let's talk about real wages.
I mean,
Let's talk about the real wage, not nominal wage that they have increased from 30,000 to 50. Ordinarily, when you don't factor all these issues of cost of living, cost of transportation, yeah, you know, this energy. Now, I think it is if you load 1,000, you can only get 4 units. And you think it is okay with us? You think productivity will be at that level?
It's really,
businesses will close up.
That's true. That's
People
true.
will be laid off. It is appalling.
Well, I think a lot needs to be done, especially in the part of government. I mean, these are people that went all out to elect and actually voted in confidence. So it is just needful. Government is about the people.
Yeah.
Governance is about the people. When we talk about democracy, it's the people knowing what they want and actually getting it. The least that the government can do is just to make life better for the people, like look into the welfare of the people, improve it, and make sure that people's living condition is actually good. I would like to thank you so much, Associate Professor Panshak Johanna, for creating time to speak with us. Great analysis. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, to our viewers out there, that's the much we'll take on today's edition of National Talk. Thank you so much for staying with us. We'll be back next week with another edition of the program. You stay blessed.